Hello, everyone. I'm checking my audio. Every audio looks good. Hey, good evening. It's Wednesday night. I am sleep deprived, but I'm still awake, so that means I'm running a game, which is good for me and for everyone else involved because I think we're all having fun. Um, yeah. So we've been having a good time so far. Um, there's still so many more things that are going to be revealed in the coming sessions. As we've talked about the first two sessions, and this one a little bit of too, or still like were prologue sessions setting a foundation for the story. All the subsequent sessions are really kind of the beginning, the official beginning with proper character levels, and there's going to be a bunch of little systems, and I'm going to have a landing page with a map, with a bunch of different factions and NPCs, etc., and so on and so forth. So, without me literally just talking about it, we can just kind of get there. Who wants to do the recap this week?
I did the written one. I'm passing this off to someone else.
Fair. Ben, would you like to take the reins?
Yeah, I can jump in.
Thank you.
If no one else is eager to do so. Last week, we were kind of concluding our invasion of the town of Greenwood. We had a few different encounters. Lilith and Audie they had to fight some little things and get Audie's family out. Corona had to fight a whole bunch of things. Corona was just a boss throughout this whole thing. And Corona also stumbled upon the secret that Roz's sister went into Fazil's place and stole his armor.
Someone broke in. Corona.
Fine.
Yeah.
Someone broke in.
Well, I'm just saying, Corona doesn't
obviously
know.
From a meta narrative, Roz's sister, but I guess the characters don't know for sure. Except possibly Roz. Might be suspicious. Anyways, somebody stole Fazil's armor, but it was definitely Roz's sister for the audience, just so you guys know. And yeah, for the rest of it, Titan got his wife and a few others out, and we survived. We survived the Greenwood invasion. That's, I think, all the most important bits.
Yeah, to which I will ask, does anybody have anything they want to add?
Titan's kind of a Chad.
It certainly looked that way. But in truth, that golem just sucked.
I did roll really bad. Like, real bad. Repeatedly. To the party's benefit.
And that's the story the dice had that day.
Yep.
The shark biter warming up.
They are. They're not hungry for blood yet. But soon. Okay. If everyone is happy with that, we will just pick up where we left off. Which is a large sum of the citizens of Greenwood escaping down the back path. Slight change in music. We're gonna go. Fleeing down the back path towards the Moondrop Lake that the village overlooked, where they were met by the spirit of the lake, a somewhat feline-like water creature named Looney, who presented them with a bubble, a glistening bubble of spirit magic, and told them to follow it, and it would guide them along the path of the river, through the path of least resistance. And so those who believed they had done all they could, ran, and followed. And the Emerald Boughs, while beautiful and vast, is still unforgiving to those attempting to do something like sprinting through it for their lives. It was late into the evening when the attack began, and as a large majority of the party and survivors from Greenwood press onwards following these spirit magic bubbles, you all eventually come to the conclusion of this guidance, wherein the river that Looney is attached to vanishes underground. And with it, Looney's influence vanishes as the water ebbs away further from the surface in which you are following into some underground reservoir. You ran for quite some time. And here, under the canopy of the Emerald Boughs, there is no light. Only what you carry with you. It is getting colder. Not anything any of you can't survive by bundling up. But you've run long enough that those of you with keen eyes to stop and wait to see if you're still being pursued verifies long enough that for the time being you're not. However, the biggest downside to you having escaped into the Emerald Boughs is that Greenwood was the closest place to society, to civilization. And even then, it was still a great deal away on foot. The closest representative kingdom to the south in which you're passing through the Emerald Boughs is Saphinis, but it is through the Emerald Boughs on the opposite side of the continent. On foot, it would take you months. So in this moment of quiet, while you were all catching your breath, rubbing aching feet, gritting teeth, and perhaps pondering what you could have done better, you are presented with this chance to recuperate and talk to your loved ones. Would anybody like to start?
Yeah, Roz is going to go to her family first. The two of them she can kind of see in the dark of the canopy anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Braun has a lantern. He's one of the few that actually managed to escape with just that light source. Everything else on him is minimum end of day wear. He has a couple woodcarver's tools on him. As you suspect, he was probably lying down working on a small project at the time. But he had just a lantern and the tools and boots that he managed to throw on.
Good old-fashioned light by fire, huh?
Well, can't say that I've not lived around this place long enough to hate being out here now. Bittersweet that it is.
I'm I haven't seen Rowan yet. I think she's invisible somewhere, somehow. I hope she is.
Well, she was in the house last. You went to go get her. And haven't seen her since then.
No, just felt her brush past me, I think.
You see Braun kind of put his hand onto his back and stretch a little and raise the lantern and look around. You think she's around here?
I think so. Yeah, I do.
Well, she'll get hungry eventually. She'll have to come out.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey. Hey, Rory. How you doing, little guy? You okay?
He is sitting on a rock. There's just like this large pile of small boulders nearby that Braun was kind of resting on. A couple of other people have kind of left supplies nearby. He's kind of managing them. And Rory's just on a smaller one, with his knees pulled up to his chest. And he's just sort of sitting there, kind of looking around, the torchlight flickering in his eyes. He looks tired. But when he looks up at you at your question, he smiles. Yeah. I'm okay.
Oh, good. Sorry to wake you up. I know it's past your bedtime and all. It's just, you're right. You didn't get zapped or anything.
He holds out his arms, like as if for you to see, and he looks unharmed.
When he holds out his arms for me to inspect, I pick him up, hold him in my arms like he was a much smaller child than he actually is, and I try to hide it in his shirt, but I start sobbing very quickly.
Just quieted as it is, Braun just sort of comes up beside you. You feel an arm wrap around your side, and you feel the other one kind of come in and pull Rory in from the other. And it's just a quiet moment. You can feel that there's just a weight, and it's one that you and your grandfather is not trying to acknowledge. And despite both of your best efforts in trying to do this for Rory's sake, it's hard. And there's a little knot deep down in your stomach that's just kind of twisting. And with each tear that you shed, you feel it just get a little tighter.
Well, that's all Roz is up to for now.
Okay.
Just crying and holding her family.
Yep. Who's next?
If no one's jumping in, Audie's probably circled up with her family. At least those are the ones that we could find.
Mm-hmm.
Did Tiffany make it out?
Yeah. She was with you the whole time. The notable absences from your family is Asmith, and your older brother.
Okay.
Everyone else is accounted for. I feel like there were decisions made that assured that, at the very least. Just a quick note, which was once everyone decided to take a breather, the small rolling crate that Tiffany was pulling with her during that whole flight, and has made it mostly this far. One of the wheels is now damaged, but it has been opened up, and inside it is a bunch of dried food rations that your mother has already started passing out to people. all the kids are kind of huddled together, whispering, talking amongst themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Some handling it better than others. But no one is handling it poorly out loud.
Mm-hmm.
There are those that are talking and there are those that aren't.
Can I kind of have a look around to see if there's any one of my siblings that's taking it worse?
You can roll an insight check.
I should actually open the character sheet then. That's important.
Yes, it is.
Oh. I'm not very bright, and it's not very bright out right now either. That's a 6.
I mean, it really has nothing to do with, your ability. It has more to do with you don't realize it, but you are suffering just as much. And your responsibility as the older sibling, while it was overtaking and you were trying to look around, you start to finally feel as the adrenaline is ebbing out of your system, the subsequent crash, and slight bit of shaking just on your edges from this whole ordeal.
Body will wrap her arms around herself as tight as she can, almost like she's trying to keep all the pieces together. She's kind of giving her hugging herself tight, kind of thing. And she's gonna go and take a look at the food rations, see how the wheelbarrows or the handcart's doing.
Sure.
Like how bad does it look? Will it be able to still be pulled?
The damage done to it. Well, I mean, the wheel in question is just completely gone. It was lost somewhere along the river trek. So you think perhaps if you have the raw materials, it would be fixed given the distinct skill set of several people that are here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, then I think Audie's gonna kind of take a look at it, and in that kind of numbness goes, it kind of has the thought of, oh, this is something I can fix. Not me, but there's someone that can fix it. And so she's going to give herself some drive and purpose and question through the camp. See if she can find a small log, literally anything. Like she's trying to distract herself with hope.
Okay. Make a survival or an investigation check, whichever suits your fancy.
All right. Survival, you said, or investigation. Well, we like investigation way more because that's a 17.
That's pretty good. Okay. You look around, kind of, walking the small, perimeter that has been formed by the people who've just kind of found a comfortable place to rest and take stock of things. And as you're kind of walking through the terrain, the Emerald Boughs it's great to hike, but it is not good for, as you've all discovered, having to run through. It's constantly shifting. The elevation's going up and down. It's rocky. The roots of the trees are enormous where they protrude. And a lot of things you can tell where the older parts are because the moss has completely absorbed whole sections of the forest floor as well. And initially you don't find anything, but it's actually with just a little bad bit of luck, you stub your foot, you stub your big toe on something. And that's where, after a couple of gnomish swears, you manage to realize that for all the damage it did to you, you did manage to luck your way into finding It's a broken branch, but you think it's suitable enough. If you were to find somebody decent with wood, they could definitely make the parts necessary to at least temporarily fix the hand crate.
All right. Well, has she seen Roz's family yet in her search? I don't know how many people are with us. I'm guessing something close to 30.
A lot of the villagers, it was over a period of time.
Mm-hmm.
As you all ran, more people kind of wound their way into the forest, and a couple of people trickled in, either from the small group of masons' homes and quarriers to the north, and a handful of farmers from the south. A couple of people, like I said, a handful of families have made their way in, including those that fled Greenwood directly. Yeah, there is close to about 30 or so people here.
Mm-hmm.
And you left the village a little bit ahead of Roz.
Mm-hmm.
But you would have heard echoes traveling through the trees, enough to at least confirm that Roz is amongst them. And given your little walk around the camp, you would spot Roz and her family, who are currently hunkered together in a small moment of family sorrow. No pressure.
Yeah, thanks. She'd kind of walk up close to them, but I think she can read the room enough to know not to just come bouncing in like they're having a moment. But she will kind of drag the branch with her, bring it along, and just kind of standing to the side as they're kind of having their moment. Maybe like clear her throat a bit if she's been there like 5-10 minutes, you know.
Fair. Braun isn't going to notice you. Rory's not going to notice you. What's your passive perception, Sam?
10.
No, it's gonna be a while before they notice you, Adi.
Right, then even in her small voice, she'll just kind of, how they all doing? Hey there, Rose.
The first person to notice you, Adi, is neither Roz or Braun. It is in fact Rory, who, after kind of being partially smothered by both of the older people here, kind of manages to poke his head out above Roz's shoulder. And you see his eyes glistening a little, like he was crying but isn't actively crying anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And he just gives you a look and then just kind of waves over Roz's shoulder, to which at that point Roz and Braun both, you would both notice that Rory's attention has been drawn to somebody just behind you.
Oh, fuck. Really quickly wipe my face on Roy's shirt and put him back down, turn around, brush tears out of my eyes. Hi. Yeah, what do you need?
Hardly seeing how everyone's doing, but the cart also lost a wheel. And she kind of lifts up the stick. I don't know how to fix it, but I know your lot do.
Oh, yeah, Granddad, we can fix that, can't we?
He collects himself, looks at the branch, looks down at his belt of like 3/4 of the way full of his woodcarver's tools, and he just kind of nods. Yeah, we can do it. And he'll walk over and, like, with a hand kind of like waving towards him for you to like hand over the branch. He'll then put them both out when he's within within reach.
Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming that he's familiar enough with the cart. He's probably done this before.
Yeah. everything in Greenwood after a point, especially if you've been here as long as Braun has, is very similar. Like this, even if it wasn't, he could go look at it and figure it out. This is this man's a lifelong career. It's simple. To which he will take the branch. He will accept it from you, sit it down near the belongings of the family and a couple of others nearby, and then he will kind of put his hands on his hips and look around, and then spot where your family is, and he'll go over just on the preface of going to actually go look at the damage that was done.
Mhm. And then as that kind of, I wouldn't say gets taken away from her, but like she's done her part. She's delivered the wood. She'll
Mhm.
kind of turn to Roz and kind of pat her on the shoulder a bit. How you holding?
It's just, hey, Rory, you go over with the
Mhm.
Ulrichs, all right? I want to talk to Audie for a second.
He looks up at you, looks over at Adi, looks back at you, and then nods several times, grabs his wooden sword off the side of the rock, and then runs off after Braun.
Watch him go. Make sure he's out of earshot. I'm angry, Audie. I'm sad, I'm angry, I'm grieving, and I want nothing more than to go back there and kill the things and the people who just kicked me out of my home.
Don't think I can rightly stop you. But I know your granddad and your brother. I think they need you more. And I know Lilith might need you. She's with my family. But I'm not telling you not to be angry. Be as angry as you need.
And I'm gonna be. But I'm not going to abandon everyone now. We've got to get somewhere safe. Somewhere safe fast. And hey, I know these woods better than almost anybody, right?
Anybody but Sophia.
Well, then I'll just have to buck up and start blazing a trail when it's light out, I guess. Don't worry about me. Go worry about someone who needs the ear, huh?
I worry about the one that's going to do something dumb.
I'm not gonna do nothing dumb.
I'll believe
I
that when I
promise.
see it. And she kind of gives you this smirk, like, I've known you since I was 6 kind of look.
All right. It might be dumb, but it's not going to be reckless. Does that satisfy you?
I think I will join you.
Good. Good.
Well, you're not going to do anything to get yourself killed if it's going to get me killed either.
Damn. All right. Fine. Goodbye, Greenwood.
Not for long, though. Go back and read it again.
Now you go back to your family, all right? I'll be over there in a second. Again, promise, not going to do anything reckless.
All right. We're looking for you. If you don't see you in a little bit, come looking again, okay?
If you don't see me, you'll hear me. I'm just going to try to make a fire or something.
And Audie's going to give her the tightest hug if Rod doesn't, like, dodge it somehow.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
The tears are all spent, but her face is still a little wet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. She squeezes her as tight as she can. And then runs off to her family when it feels appropriate to let go.
Okay. Has anybody else worked up the courage to be next, or do I have to call on the class?
Excuse me. I can go. Stop. It'll be quick, so whoever hasn't gone yet, get ready.
Okay.
That's the spirit.
But Titan, once everybody's kind of stopped, is just going family to family and camp to camp, getting an accounting of who's there, who isn't, gathering people who he would generally consider level-headed and intelligent to discuss what their next move is. He's trying to learn what remains of Greenwood, then what he can do from there to get them to safety.
Fair. Yeah, this is less of a check and more of a just accounting, really.
Yep.
So you pass through, looking at a handful of people. It is unfortunate that you can count on the total number of families here on two hands. As mentioned earlier, the total headcount is about in the low 30s, which is noticeably fewer than you would like.
Yeah.
But you're also smart enough to know that the outskirts of where the quarry is to the north, beyond the Craftsman's Plateau, and the farms and the farm fields to the south, where there are several families that also have abodes, depending upon the way they reacted, you know there are several families that can easily go unaccounted for but still be perfectly safe. Out of those here, those you think that could reliably be used as just a council of cool-headed individuals. Out of everyone you know, you think there are 3 people here that could very easily, even if necessary, take on even a leadership role to keep things together. Out of them, you have Viren, one of the town hunters. You have Oren, who is currently a mason. He joined in part of the group that came in from the north. And then there's also a man named Tyrion, who lived just outside of Greenwood, between the furthest farm field and this one. He would be a farmhand on occasion, but mostly actually just kind of lived in solitude. But he's always been the type that you feel like is observant and keen of mind, and able to provide like very just logical, reasonable, sensible decisions. Even though you don't entirely know what his background is. Which is to say, I guess, reflecting that Viren's background, he has been a lifelong hunter. And Oren, the Mason, he's actually a retired paladin of Marin, who, when the goddess let go of her divinity, he basically took that opportunity to also hang up his sword belt.
Okay. It was Viren, Oren, and
yeah, I'll give you names.
yeah, thanks. It's like, hold on.
Do you want last names too?
Yeah, sure.
Sure. around being a dum-dum typing out my own notes when I could just copy-paste them. There you go. Amongst everybody here, out of those that you've selected you think are level-headed and capable of helping make decisions in this crisis, there are a handful of others that you believe could act as combatants, and then everyone else would be very easily classified as non-combatants, including elderly and children.
Okay. Then, yeah, like I said, right now he's just getting an accounting of everybody, setting up a minor council so that we can discuss what the best move is.
Yeah.
And then from there, organizing it down to be like, those of you who can protect people, keep them safe. We'll move together. Best chance. Stupid split up. All that stuff that you tell people. Yeah, that's it for Titan.
Okay. We will follow up on a bit of that in a moment. All right, you two always polite waiters of the scene. Who's going first?
I can hop in if Lilith needs an extra bit of time.
Oh, I don't need it. I'm just being polite.
No.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'll go ahead then. Why
Okay.
not? Okay, so yeah, similarly to Titan, I think Corona would be, walking around and making sure that people are okay, that they're bundling up, just kind of like getting a head count, trying to do, something to keep her mind on things. And for her, I think it's kind of as she's walking. The way she's handling it is, I think that for her it's kind of like a sort of like mental like release, because she's had years, like she literally trained for something like this happening again, so she's had like years of preparation mentally. But it's not something that obviously she wanted to see happen.
Yeah.
So it's like she's just processing with the reality that it finally did happen, and now what? She can do what she trained for, so like, was it even worth it? And having all this kind of like sort of inner monologue with herself. But in earnest, she is trying to make sure that all the families are kind of bundled up, and she, I guess, is trying to make sure that some key members that kind of pop up in her head are safe, and those being first and foremost her own family, because she wasn't able to go get them herself, and honestly Fazil, because she kind of forgot about him after seeing him in the center. And then she probably noticed the tree like dimming a little bit, but like there was all the EMPs and like
there was a lot going on.
Everything. Yeah, so
Yeah.
she just didn't remember in the moment, and the only reason she probably remembers is because of the cellar door being open. So between all that, she's keeping her eyes out for those people in particular as she's making the rounds.
Yeah. First and foremost, we can relieve one of those burdens from your shoulders in that during the flight, the several hours long flight into the woods, as other families from the north and south coalesced into this big group, among them were your parents.
Okay.
Warren and Nicole both. Despite their age, but in thanks to their hardy life of farmers, had enough endurance and fortitude to make the trek and meet up with everybody. They are okay. They are no worse for the wear. If anything, they would have brought with them a rather harrowing tale of things that they were able to see from your homestead compared to what it was like what they're hearing from people talking about what happened in the village.
Then in that case, she'd probably spend a good chunk of her time just giving them a big hug. Actually, no. She'd spend some time, but she has her duties, and I'm sure that they'd probably actually insist that she, go around and make sure everyone's okay before finally settling down to, sit down with them. So
yeah, after the initial, like when everyone was able to stop after the initial embrace, the exchanges of just love and affection and being glad to see everyone was okay, then basically, yeah, pushing you to go make sure everyone else is the same. We're fine.
Okay. In that case, with that huge weight off her shoulders, I think Corona will, continue her rounds. She might pass by Titan as he's also making the rounds, and just in passing say, "Hey Doc, if you need any help with anything, just let me know." Just in passing.
I'm still trying to figure out our next move here.
Gotcha.
You're welcome to join us. I've talked to a few people.
And now that I've been reminded, Titan, Warren, Corona's father, would also be amongst the list of people that would be good in this advisory position that you've been seeking out.
Okay. But we're gonna need people to keep everyone safe. And I think I can rely on you for that, Corona.
I'll do my best. Say, speaking of people to keep everything all hunky-dory, have you seen Fazil?
Titan just takes a deep breath and deflates for a little bit and stands himself up again. The old man gave his life to buy us all time.
You're not bullshitting?
Wish I was.
I think Corona takes a moment and similarly deflates a little bit. She's not surprised. I don't think most people would be surprised considering how much trust they put in him. But it all kind of starts connecting the dots. Of course, like, he's not here. He hasn't come in, everyone else has. So where else would he be? And I think she's just going to give a silent nod at that and say, "All right. Well, I'll be getting back to work then. Thanks for letting me know."
Titan just puts a hand on her shoulder. We'll mourn her later. Or mourn him later. We've both got work to do.
Right. And with that, she'll just kind of make her way, continue the rounds.
All right. And last but not least, Lilith.
Well, once everything had kind of settled down and people began kind of splitting up into their families and looking like they're, just gonna eat and try to relax, Lilith was going to go around and do a head count, but then she saw two other people going around doing a head count.
What's a third? Come
on. So I think, she trusts Titan and Corona. They're probably better off doing that. But she kind of does like a loose one just from like a central standing position, looking around, kind of loose count.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. kind of dawns on her that there are almost 200 people missing.
Yep.
But she doesn't really have anything that she feels like she can do right now. And the adrenaline's kind of wearing off. She's aching from where she got zapped. She's just gonna kind of slink off, not far, but just like on the other side of one of the trees,
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of put her back against it and just let herself slide down and put her head into her knees and cry.
It's reasonable. I don't blame you. All right. While everyone's doing their rounds, checking in on people, gathering those who can help create a collective decision as to what to do next. During that time, about 20 minutes or so, as everyone is taking stock, getting settled, or at least a little bit comfortable to be able to catch their breaths. A handful of other people trickle in. Another 5, 6 people. A lot of single individuals from the share house, mostly. There are no families among them at the very least, or at the very least, no adults missing families. Some of them are worse for wear. You can tell clearly. Some of you are sporting. There are a couple of electrical burns individuals have suffered. That look like some have been hastily bandaged. Others less so, and they come bearing news that while they weren't pursued near as they could tell, they fled the village a little later than everyone else. And when they did, it wasn't just the small spiderling reconnaissance automatons that came into the village. There were these 12-foot tall, heavily armored bronze golems. Dozens of them. And shortly thereafter, these hovering, flying crafts of huge, intricate spinning cogs and spinning blades that were shining these huge spotlights on the ground and forced them to completely and utterly flee. One of them, an individual that goes by the name of Jace, Jace, again, one of the singles from the share house, worked as a mercenary for a little bit of time in his early 20s, didn't like the lifestyle, was traveling, stumbled into Greenwood, has been working in Greenwood for about 3 years now. He's always been nice, helpful. Just good, reliable muscle, was part of the militia, so a lot of you are familiar with him. He stayed as long as he could, and up until the last moments, he reports that by the time he had to leave, under threat of being found, he saw that they were gathering Greenwood villagers in the center of town. And that was when he had to leave, before he could find out anything else. Jace will join amongst the group of people, Titan, that you're collecting to help make decisions. You basically have a small council at this point.
Yeah. Jace ruined the fun thing we had going, where all of our names ended with an N.
Oopsie.
Yeah, no. Titan's happy to have Jace join them, and also happy to get the updated report. But it is also worth noting, like, Titan is, while doing the rounds, patching up the worst of the injuries and getting people in condition that they can keep going if they need to. And similar with the people who arrive late, he'd re-bandage them and get them in slightly better condition.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, gathers his small council.
The information you do manage to gather out of your 40 or so survivors now, after people have kind of taken count of various things that you all have, first and foremost, the thing that is highly acknowledged is that while you have a handful of capable fighters, no one is well equipped enough to fight. Not with what is being reported to have been the end of Greenwood. What arrived there is not something reasonable for anyone here to wait for in an attempt to combat again, even with a handful of more seasoned fighters in your ranks. 2, you have enough rations amongst the people that have fled to feed everybody for 2 days. That doesn't account for foraging or anything of the like. Water is less so. However, given the season, you will have enough rain and runoff through the canopy down into the forest to find plenty to keep people hydrated, but will start taking its toll eventually. And as long as people stay mostly dry and warm enough, night to night, you don't have to worry about the cold too much.
Okay, that is all mostly good news. The food situation is something that we'll need to address, because we've only got a couple hunters.
Mm-hmm. Out of the actual group, out of the town's labeled hunters, you have 1.
Yeah.
And both of his sons, who he was teaching to take over the family trade, but they're 11 and 13. And Lilith is also capable. They're also the other problem is there are also just not enough bows to go around, or that many arrows left either.
Yeah.
So resource management's a problem for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, Viren does at least promise that with the arrows he has, which is just 6 after the amount he spent in the village, he could secure food for maybe 1 extra day for the some 40 plus heads here, depending upon how good game is, but an extra day is what he's imagining he could stretch it out to.
Well, that buys us some time. Roz and her family made it out. They might be able to make some more arrows for you.
Yeah, that's something. But none of this answers what we're doing, where we're going. We just can't wait here.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get to another village, preferably a city, to be honest.
Oren, the mason, the retired paladin, he's sitting on a rock, one leg, pressed up against it. His elbows on his knee and his chin's in his hand, and he's just sort of sitting there listening, and he chimes in occasionally. I spoke to the old man Fazil quite a bit. We talked about possible realities such as this. He thought it wouldn't happen during his lifetime, but he planned for it. The reason why the escape route goes south through the Emerald Boughs is that he wants us to go find a way to contact the Greenskeeper, the spirit of the Boughs. He said he spoke to it once, and in an emergency such as this, it would give us a way to be granted safe passage to somewhere, to people,
Well, I'm not much for spirit calling. Anybody else here know a bit about the spirits?
You have everyone pass a look around each other. You see, just at a glance, a lot of just like people shaking their head in the negative, not being familiar with it. Unfortunately, this was ultimately like Fazil's realm. Natural magic and spirits. And out of those that are here, it does not appear to be anyone that is familiar with it.
Then Titans. Well, let's hope that my knowledge of magic is enough to get us through then. It's our best shot. Who knows how far this army's marching, or what they even want. We gotta get who we can safe.
I agree. I do think this is a chance for everyone to take a quick breather, but then we have to keep moving. I don't think this is the place we rest for the night.
No. We might have to honestly push through the night, rest the next night. Like I said, I have no idea how far this army's willing to come.
Well, since they're taking prisoners, we have to assume it's us they're after. Or at least leverage some kind of somebody. The more distance between us and them, the safer everyone will be. We should pass word around that we're only resting temporarily, so people don't get too comfortable.
Alright. It's a start. Let's start telling people what the plan is.
You get a series of nods and agreements. And the temporary council separates and everyone heads into different directions to speak to families. Pass the decided verdict around. Lilith.
What up?
While when you've been tucked into the groove of this enormous moss-covered redwood, there's been a lot of feelings to get out, a lot of things to process, and things, will take some time before you really feel, well, better. When you feel like the last handful of tears you have in that moment to cry have kind of run out, you notice that there's this partially uncomfortable pins and needles feeling. And when you kind of pull your attention to it, you realize it's where your amulet is. When you look at it, the runes across it are glowing very slightly. And as your brain is processing what it could mean, you hear somewhere in the distance, somewhere away from the larger part of the camp, a whisper, a voice. Help me. I'm trapped. Please set me free. What do you do?
Kind of startles at the noise. But kind of tries to focus her eyes on where she thinks she's hearing this voice.
Perception check.
5.
You look, you listen, and you can't quite identify where it is, just the direction, as they continue to beckon for you.
She'll pull herself to her feet and kind of glance to the right and left and begin kind of cautiously walking forward, trying to keep track of how far she's going from everyone else and the path back.
You can see the edges of the lanterns and the torches that are lit kind of provide a small amount of illumination that are kind of lighting up the sides of the trees as you take steps over these large roots, down these handfuls of like little gullies. And the voice continues to call out, asking for help, seeming in distress. And it gets louder and louder as you continue to advance further and further. By the time you've moved only about 20-25 feet or so, the voice sounds very near. And when you've kind of arrived at that location and you look around, there's a kind of a convergence point where several of these large redwoods roots have all snaked downwards, and there's a small drop off. It's about 6-7 feet, and then it kind of slopes a little bit, but it's heavily overgrown with the same moss that the Emerald Boughs is known for. And it sounds like the voice is coming from the bottom of it. Someone help me, please.
I'm here. Are you underneath?
I'm trapped. Please. Someone. I need help.
She'll kind of get down on her knees and start trying to pull away some of the moss.
As you do, it's not long before you startle yourself and you find a skeletal hand that was completely encompassed by the moss. And you can tell by the joint, it follows up to an arm. Please, don't leave me.
Is this you?
You're close. Please, I can't breathe. It's stifling.
Hesitating for a long moment, she's going to try to clear more and see if she can get a big enough hole that she can pull somebody out.
You rip and tear, and the moss is dense and thick, and it kind of rips away with the sound of like tearing fabric. But after like 30 seconds of just fervent shredding of the moss, you find where the arm meets the shoulder and the shoulder meets the torso, and eventually tucked in between these two roots where there's a skeletal head resting there. And as you pull away the last bit of moss on the skull, there's this flash of misty white energy, and it kind of whirls up into your face like taking a lid off of a boiling pot of water, and it washes over you, and you kind of recoil briefly. It's warm, way warmer than it is outside. And you blink, and your vision's fine, and you look, and the skeleton is still just lying there, inert. But when you hear this voice speak again, it is not coming from the skeleton. It is inside your head. Thank you. I've been trapped here for so long.
Who are you?
There's a pause. My given name is Bellinor. I don't recall my family name.
How did you end up like this?
I was being chased. There were a group of people that meant me great harm to take my life. And I fled here into the Boughs. I was familiar with this place. I must have tripped and tumbled. I don't quite remember everything.
Are you in my head right now?
That is a good question. I am uncertain as to where I am, but speaking to you is considerably easier now.
What can you see?
A skeleton covered by moss, roots, a rough outline I believe to be you. Not much else.
Do you understand what's happened to you?
I think. Another pause. I think I died when I tripped. But I don't quite understand what's happening now. I didn't go into an afterlife like I believed I should have. I've been calling out for help ever since. How is it? Do you know what's happening?
For some reason, I could hear you. I think it has to do with this relic.
Oh. Seems like the twins were smiling on me today then. For someone such as yourself to have stumbled upon me, all the way out here.
Twins?
The gods of luck.
Right. So Lilith being a history nerd, would she have at least heard of them?
Yeah, make a religion check.
$16.
Yeah. You're well studied enough to know that in the last century there has been a very dramatic change in the living pantheon of Eldarth, referred to as the title bearers, and among them a long-standing god from the creation period, the twins, a brother and sister who ruled over luck, vanished from the pantheon.
It seems that you've been gone for a while. Do you know of a small village called Greenwood, not far from here?
You hear him ponder. Can't say I'm familiar with such a place, no.
Okay. I'm pretty much as lost as you are at what's going on now, but the fact that I'm hearing you in my head makes me think that instead of being down there, you're now up here with me. So maybe I'll be able to help you.
I do want to find out who was responsible for chasing me out here. I would greatly appreciate at least that opportunity. I can help you with what knowledge I do have. I remember things, herbs found here in the forest. I used to know how to make poultices and potions. I can help with things like that. It will have to be through your hands.
I think that will be very helpful considering current circumstances. But before anything, Lilith is gonna start very gingerly trying to pull, pieces of the skeleton out.
Yeah. Make a sleight of hand check. Let's see how gingerly you can do it.
14.
Pretty good. Yeah, I mean, you can start extracting parts. With very little manipulation, the bones pretty easily, come apart. Like, the skeleton no longer stays whole, now disturbed. You think it was really held together by the moss in the first place, and once you get far enough, it sort of pulls out. As you're working through this process and you're pulling bones out, you do find, amongst everything that is here, amongst the scattered bones, there is a very decayed leather satchel that was slung over his shoulder and at his waist.
She will take that as well.
When you pick it up, you hear some glass clinking.
She'll open it.
There are a handful of potions inside.
Do you know what these are?
I don't remember, no.
Well, maybe they'll be useful. Do you mind if I take them?
I don't think I'll be getting any use out of them, so someone might as well.
She'll nod and kind of set the bag aside. There really isn't any way for me to give you a proper burial out here. Do you have any specific traditions that This is very new to me.
You can hear him consider. I didn't have any family traditions that I can remember. I think, not considering the circumstances in which why I am here, my body is here. Being here in the forest, in the Boughs, I think is where I would have preferred. I hate to have made all of your efforts meaningless, but I think if you just leave me here, I will be fine with that.
Okay. She will kind of just carry the bones over to the base of a tree and just kind of gently, respectfully lay them out underneath between the roots. probably not perfectly. She's not a medicine woman, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, that looks like an arm, that looks like a leg kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you were really determined for this to go well, you could go get, the doctor. And he could lead you through the song.
We were just through a traumatic event, and now I'm, finding a skeleton and trying to do a small burial for the voice inside my head. That feels like maybe something I shouldn't tell them yet.
That
Everybody grieves differently. It's fine.
I hear voices.
I mean, Titan's an intelligent enough doctor to know that if you're burying bones, you didn't just kill this person.
Or she was very hungry.
Weird.
She'll kind of finish that up and just... She's going to think very hard. Can you hear this?
Yes.
Okay, I don't have to talk out then. I'm gonna go back to the others now. Hopefully I can help figure out what happened to you and why those people were chasing you.
That is all I ask for.
She'll begin making her way back.
All right. As you do, Lilith, you feel the pins and needles still prickling where your amulet is. And when you look at it again, you can see across the runes that have been etched into it, the light has dimmed. But in the central part of the amulet itself, there is a rune that you did not know was there that is lightly illuminated now.
Stare at it for a long moment and kind of reach for where she would normally keep her journal to write things down, realize that she doesn't have it on her. But just keep moving.
Okay.
Trying to memorize it.
Okay. Audie and Roz. What are you two up to?
Roz, for the brief time that we're here, has been just trying to get a fire going to get some warmth, give something for people to gather around. A little light, a little hope, something.
Which I think is difficult to do because the emerald boughs are very wet, especially during the season. So, like, anything dry to burn is difficult, in which case lighting something that is wet takes a bit more effort, especially if you're just doing it like with flint. And there's a point where you feel like your effort's going to be rewarded is when one of the messengers from Titan's group that you saw talking in the circle comes over and tells you that, we're going to be leaving in about an hour or so. So make sure you have everything.
Oh, don't worry, it's all on my back. Yeah, I'll it's just something that I need to check on real quick. Excuse me for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
I throw down the flint because that's frustrating.
Very.
Of course. Trying to start a fire when it's wet. Wander out a little ways from everyone else and start shouting for Rowan.
Okay.
Let her know that we're going to be leaving soon. And she can't stay invisible forever, so she better come be with her family.
Make a persuasion check.
10.
You walk a ways out. You bellow into this enormous towering forest. You don't get a response immediately. And after giving a polite amount of time waiting a response ever, nothing comes. You don't hear anything around you other than the people and the small makeshift camp nearby.
Too much to hope for, I guess. Well, I'll wander back and see how my granddad's doing with the wagon, I guess.
He has been diligently working away with the Aldrichs, and he's over there while he's with his tools working through this branch that Adi provided, and he's telling this very boisterous story in an attempt to entertain the Albrecht kids while Isabel is still tending to people in the camp. His work, as always, looks good. Even with him distracting himself by spending half of the time telling a story that is not focusing on the job, you can tell probably in about another 20-30 minutes he'll have all the parts ready and be able to, fabricate it onto the wagon.
Well, while I'm here waiting on him to do his work, I'm going to inspect the sword that Rorken gave me a little bit more closely.
Okay. What about it are you trying to glean from it?
I am not even sure just how to hold it. Thinking about driving it through some murderous villain's chest.
Ah. A classic. Just roll me a D100 percentile die, please.
D100?
Yeah.
You got it.
My favorite dice.
26.
Okay. You're sitting nearby, listening to your grandfather weave a tale. You can tell he's hamming it up on purpose just to be a distraction. You think it's for him and for the Albrecht kids. You're sitting nearby with the sword that Rorken gave you. The flat of the blade and the pommel, resting on the flats of your hands. You're looking at it, you're observing it. You grab onto the hilt and you lift it up. It's weighty, but very well balanced. Even though you've trained with wooden swords and have on occasion been able to use a real one, you've never had a need to fight with one. So in your head, you have this fever dream of some shadowy figure that is menacing and malevolent, and it is everything that you are angry at and the people you are blaming for what's happened. And you have this just dramatic scene of running it through, and the figure just kind of pops in a hiss. And you look at the weapon, and it feels more at home in your hand. There's just, as the more you hold it and the more you look at it and the more you imagine using it, you're getting this familiarity with it. It is brand new to you, but at the same time, it is becoming like something you've always had. No different from you holding an axe. And as you replay in your mind that figure, that all your hatred is being poured into, each time you attack it differently. And it is you doing it, even though you know you've never had the proper opportunity to move like that, to feel like that, to know and to read how something moves and fights like that. But you've seen some of the other older militiamen, those that have retired from lives that required them to soldier or be a guardsman or a mercenary, have sparred against one another. And your grip on the blade becomes so sure that you have a feeling that the next time, if you have to draw it against somebody that you intend to hurt, somehow you know you will succeed in taking that person's life. It is as sure as you know that final axe swing will down a tree. And something about the blade's grim visage really kind of hammers that home. Carpenter pun intended.
I think this little fantasy that I've concocted in my mind while holding the sword and thinking about it all, an expression comes over my face that's not happy, but satisfied at the thought.
Roswin, you feel the first inklings of something that will take a while for her to understand, but we understand as Roswin's awakening. Over the course of the next day, Roswin's physique is going to strengthen. Her body is going to harden. Her senses are going to sharpen. Her understanding of weapons and armor and how to use them that she's only ever read about or seen on travelers or mercenaries are going to become second nature. This battle instinct that she wishes she had during the flight from Greenwood so that way she could help and not just listen to other people say she couldn't, is going to begin refining itself and settling in as a foundation. And in less than a day's time, she will be much more sure of what she will be capable of. You are more than welcome to start using your level 1 character sheet.
Oh, incredible.
And I think there is where we're going to take the break. The rest of you get ready, you're next.
Hi.
Have Titans all prepared.
Good. All right. Like I said, we're going to take a break. So we'll be back in 10 minutes. And we will continue to see what the survivors of Greenwood do and how the party members continue to find themselves. That seems kind of wrong. They're going to become heroes. Maybe. We'll see. After we come back from the break. See you then. We're back. Welcome. I'm unmuting the music player. And changing the song. But hey, we're back. And to change my vocal tone a little so we can better set the mood, we have returned back to the Emerald Boughs, where the survivors of Greenwood have temporarily stopped to recover. People have done several rounds by this point of different individuals, different people counting different heads. One of which Lilith separated from its body and then buried beneath a tree.
You put that back in context right now.
No, I refuse. If people want context, they can go watch the VOD. Anyway,
Plug.
Also uploaded to YouTube.
usually 24 hours after the stream. Wow. Yeah. We just finished with Roz, with her self-reflection and a moment of personal growth, leading to more substantial growth in the near future. Near Roz in this time was also Melody, who, hearing word that the camp was only staying put for a short while, followed in Roz's wake, quiet as reserved as ever, and I guess just quiet. Reserved isn't accurate. Eventually going back to her family, where Braun, Roz's grandfather, is working on the parts to fix the wagon, and telling this grand, boisterous tale of a sailor and his love and the trials that he goes through to get back to her, of which most of you have heard the story once or twice, especially if Braun was drinking at the tavern that night, because it is a true story. It is not his story, but he claims it is his best friend's tale that he tells over and over again. None of you have ever met this best friend. So, Adi, you've returned to your family. Your mother is still about the camp. She checks in every once in a while, but then is still going back out, making sure people have everything they need, kind of taking an inventory to see what everyone else has, at which point is reported back to Titan's Council, so they have an idea as to like what goods are on hand. But what is Adi doing? What is Adi feeling?
As this story is being told, Audie would be very, as you said, kind of nearby, and because she's heard this so many times, like this was a story that she heard as a kid, and now, these kids are hearing it, and so it's a bit memorized for her. So she would be almost acting it out, like because his hands will be busy as he's fixing things. So she's like, "Oh, I know this." He's usually very animated and up doing things, so she's kind of miming and filling in the physical part of it.
Yeah, partway through though, like you got there, you've been there for a few minutes. You're pantomiming all the parts Braun normally does, especially the version for the kids, because he tells it to adults too. It just is a little bit. It's just a little bit more explicit in its details. There is a part where you see him take his wood carving tool, and he just sort of shakes it in the air like, I don't remember this part. Audie, finish it for me.
And she kind of stops, and if she could, she would like start coughing, like she chokes, like. Oh. And she kind of stops and she breathes. And she kind of steels herself, and she does her best to. She kind of like turns away from them, and she pulls her bangs forward a little bit, the little tufts she's got. So she's kind of half covering one eye, and turns around with a little bit more confidence if she can muster it, and starts telling the tale that she's used to hearing. She would, I guess it depends on where he left off.
That's for you to improv if
It's
you
for
want
me to figure out.
Or you can just say she recites it and we can make a check. That's up to you. 1 DC is way lower.
Oh, I know. It was one of those, I'm like, I was just really hoping for like the last line in the story that he was telling. It's just like, yeah, she'd turn around and she'd say, and it was from his perspective. I just want to make sure I have that part right. It's from the friend's perspective.
No, it's from an omniscient narrative.
Omniscient narrative.
Narrator.
Fair.
So he's talking about things that were not, that could not be directly talked about. Talked about? What am I saying? Talked about by somebody that had experienced it. Like there's just like there's like these otherworldly things that he's mentioning that he always talks about.
Okay, good. So it's just like, all right. And she would take it on. She would just be like, and this was the time that they were separated from each other. It felt like the world was between them. And every night, she would go down to the ocean, and she would sing for him, because she knew that song could now you have to deal with the player. That song could travel farther than the Let's rewind that a bit. Sorry.
No, this is perfectly in character. Go on.
Audie has more confidence than this. Much more than I do. Anyway, she's like, like she would go down because she knows that hopes can travel further in a song than just words alone. And like I said, she would kind of pull her hair forward so she almost didn't have to look at anyone. And she would start singing. She would start singing a ballad that she'd learned from her mother or learned from Braun, picked up in harbor. Something. Of course, there's sea shanties and ballads. It's part of
Absolutely
the harbor life, right? But she's worried that if she sees anyone, she could direct that voice to them. And so she kind of covers her eyes as she sings. Yes, that would be a performance check.
Yes, it is. You can do it. It's a +3.
Shoot. There we go. Thank you. That's a 15.
That's really good. You guys have to remember, you all mostly are level 0. A 15 is great.
Yeah. I would like to add, the intention was that it is hopeful and not somber, not like, oh no, I've lost him, but it's just like, you know the feeling of like somewhere out there from Fievel Goes West?
Yeah.
It's that. It's that feeling.
What a deep cut, by the way.
Right?
Wow. Yeah. Perfect example. Because this story has never been a sad story. If someone told it with it intending to be, you could definitely manipulate it to do so, but Braun has always told it as, again, the loud, happy story he tells when he's drunk. Because he's so proud to call that man his friend. And so that's why he's such a braggart. And so it is always very loud and uplifting. And because your eyes are covered, Audie, you don't notice it. But Braun looks up at you as he's working away, now quietly, more focused in. But there's a moment where he stops and he looks up at you, and he just gives like a silent nod, like, "Atta girl, good job." And your siblings take it well. Rory takes it well. You can see spirits noticeably lift amongst your siblings and the children there, along with those that are within earshot, which is a lot of people. You think, if nothing else, while some adults might be more grounded in the reality of the situation and maybe not so easily distracted, there's something that is comforting to hear a voice of Greenwood's mystery singer. Something that people are not realizing, maybe they took for granted, and it is a small piece of home that they were able to experience so shortly after having lost it. Melody, while you're doing this, as you sing, as you are afraid to see the response, the reaction of your performance. While you might not be able to see the effects you are having, you can still hear them. You can hear the excited sounds of the kids and your siblings around you. You can hear not whispers of criticism, but of quiet compliment and comfort of those families that are nearby remarking on hearing something so beautiful and something that's become so hard for them right now. And you feel something well up inside of you. You don't know how to describe it. You're not entirely sure what it is, but at least in this one instance, it is always in the back of your mind, the fear you have with this strangeness to your voice that you've never understood. You know for this moment, it has done good. It has made people's burdens lighter. You feel your presence has reached beyond and into people in a way that it never has before. And with it comes this little nugget of confidence. A little piece of fear of your voice has chipped away, and as it has landed and resolved, it is glowing and golden. And you feel that little nugget begin to snake its way into the rest of your faculties, into your memories of the books you've read and the stories you've exchanged with merchants and mercenaries and porters, travelers that have come into the town, the individuals that have bought goods from your store, the tales of all the villagers you've heard for those that have moved in and have left. You can recall so many of it, so much of it, and the lessons that were taken from it. You've become smarter and wiser, even though you know that you've known this has always been there. And while your body might ache, you're uncertain as to how things are going to go. As you finish your performance, you know that you won't be the one that needs to be carried forward. You know in the coming days' time, you will be able to provide strength to others that might lack it. You may now switch to your first level character sheet.
Thank you.
Yes. And for the record, as everyone is switching to their sheets, make sure this is your accounting of the belongings you have on the first level sheet, because it would not be your standard starting gear. We will get to that eventually, but not right now while you're in the forest. Elsewhere in the camp, taking head counts, checking lists, keeping an eye on surroundings and listening for danger. Corona, you've been in a unique perspective to watch a lot of things unfold. You trusted with your father being part of Titan's council to gather thoughts as to how the villagers should move forward. You've been able to be outside, watching as those conversations were had. You've been able to watch the different families comfort one another and care for one another. You've been able to see various friends of yours come in and out of the various torch and lantern lights here as people are gathering, and you hear Audie's ballad kind of bouncing off of the trees, again providing a little bit of familiarity to this otherwise unknown situation. What is Corona doing? What is running through Corona's head?
I think at the moment since she's kind of got a little bit to herself, she'd probably be reminded actually of like the because I forgot as a player. She'd be reminded probably when kind of like moving around that she's got that that uh that automaton strapped to her still.
Yeah.
And she'd probably, you know, after giving a good look over in the surroundings, not to be caught off guard again, she'd probably kind of set it down, without really any sort of care or you know, a concern for its fragility. She just kind of just like tosses it in front of her on the grass or the stone, whatever the ground is.
Yeah.
And she just kind of looks at it, assessing, internally, like that came from your enemy, like really just processing like what it is that if they're going to fight back, that is what she's going to have to expect as the baseline, let alone whatever else they might have. And she's just thinking about how she wants to pay them back, but at the same time part of her is holding herself back because she is reminded of the fact that her family is alive. And she just very briefly lingers on what might have been, what could have been, if that hadn't been the case, if they hadn't come out alive. And she's just, she doesn't linger on it too long. She doesn't want to be caught off guard. Yeah. She keeps her watch there, but she has the thing out in front of her, and it's the source of her thoughts as she's keeping watch.
And as you do, and you consider this contraption, this thing that was a part of a group of things that attacked you and the villagers and the people that you care for, you see it and you realize that now that it's not moving, it looks so small and fragile. Its internal components seem very complex, but tiny and easy to break. You could pull out one of the gears by your fingertips and snap it with enough force. And yet they cause so much chaos. And as other survivors trickled in and you heard the stories and tales, especially those from Jace, understanding what was yet to come, that those were not the real threats. The real threats pushed down the palisade walls that were put up to deter the bandit attacks that have occurred over the last 20 years. That there were machines crafted specifically to overtake and overpower the village in a way that it wouldn't be possible to defend against. And even the tales, the rumors of those who didn't see and those that did, the summoning of a copper dragon that was then summarily chased away with an unbelievable show of force from things that people didn't even know what it was. And it's so easy to think the Shalseer, these protectors that have come to your village for years, probably longer than you've been alive, showed up and fought and did the things they were supposed to do. These seasoned veterans summoned a dragon to even help deter what was happening. And even it wasn't enough. You realize right now, while you survived and you helped many other people escape, you were determined to not let it happen again. To not find yourself in the position where that is all you can do. You think about the people you've trained alongside with, the other veterans of the village, those that have had lives where they've required to take the lives of others, that have fought in wars and battles around the world. And you've heard these stories and these tales, but it didn't match up to what happened. And the more you think on it, the more you stare off into these towering titans of trees, making sure nothing sneaks up on you again. Your hand grips onto the longbow. You're more aware of the wounds you've taken, your exhaustion, the arrows left in your quiver, the weapons you have on you, the weapons around you, the people that are armed and capable of fighting. And so many of these stories and these tales you've heard and the sparring practices you've had, the things that seemed out of your reach, now, as you stand watch, as time passes, this hour ticks by, you might not realize it now, but so many things are coming to a head. So many things are making sense. And you know there's a deep, deep part inside of you as you glance at that automaton, the scrap at your feet, that while you might not have been able to stop it, you know the next time you see these enemies, you'll be able to do something more about it. Corona, please switch to your level 1 character sheet.
Yes.
And don't be alarmed as you guys are getting to these sheets. I'm moving them into the folder that is in there. So if you need them for some reason, just be aware that's where they have been moved to. Titan. You've done a lot to organize the villagers. You've found those capable, responsible folks that are able to use their authority and experience to help corral everyone else. You've got a plan, enough of one for now. You see people gathering their strength, physically and mentally, and some offering prayers, so spiritually as well. And there is the moment following Audie's ballad where you and Lotus, after spending so much time thinking about and worrying about everybody else, where you go have a quiet moment to yourselves. And at least in that quiet moment are given the opportunity, even if brief, to grieve everything that you've lost. What is Titan doing, feeling, thinking?
Titan is feeling very helpless. Titan is feeling the weight of everything he wants to be able to do, and realizing his shoulders are not strong enough to bear it. And Titan is very much thinking about a project he's been working on for the last 40 years. It probably wouldn't be right away, but when everybody does finally stop for the night to get rest, the more observant people would hear a hushed argument between Titan and Lotus. Not one that seems angry, rather one that seems very sad. And again, across the next couple of days, the most observant would see little cracks forming in Titan's hands. Subtle at first, but as time goes on, they extend deeper down his arm. All along his hands, they get bigger, wider, much more noticeably cut and stitched and recut and restitched. His hands would grow thicker, and the claws on his hands would seem to get longer at the end of all of this journey of his. And, much of what Titan was going to be capable of, he already is. But he finally makes the decision to cross the boundary that Lotus had been holding him away from for so long, and to change his body, to rip it apart and rebuild it into something he can use to defend his friends and to kill his enemies.
And there's still yet even something that Titan knew could be possible, but had no way to instigate. Studies have been done, and Titan does not immediately realize that it is unfolding, but will in the coming days, when an opportunity to actually consider the circumstances in which things have unfolded. That, like several of his companions around him, Titan is going to find an additional strength that is going to build up and well inside of him. Things of his most core nature, of his Dragonite heritage, are going to become stronger. More than is normal for his kind. And he will take notice of it before long. Especially if he finds himself needing perhaps to use some of those abilities before meeting his enemies again on the field of battle. There is no transition here, as Titan's life experience has granted him his normal array of stats and abilities. That being said, I will have a couple of minor changes to grant to you sometime later. Things that will be coming from your ladder, which I will be talking to all of you about at some point. And then I will talk to the stream what the heck a ladder is and why it's good to climb them.
I did want to note for Titan's visible appearance of his claws, and this was not approved by CJ, but he can kibosh it if he wants.
Try me.
Very much the claws on most of his fingers look, similar to what they were before. Much larger, much more vicious, but similar. They're sort of an icy white color.
Mm-hmm.
What you'd think they were. But on his middle finger and ring finger on his right hand, and on his pinky finger and ring finger on his right hand, and his middle finger and thumb on his left hand, the claws appear to have been replaced with diamond.
Interesting. Allowed? Sure.
Thank you. That's.
And I'm sure somebody will ask about Titan's new bling in the future.
Yeah, for sure. Anyway, sorry. That was it.
Yeah. So Titan will spend the remainder of the evening rounding everybody up and getting ready to begin the trek deeper into the Emerald Boughs. That being said, we still have one last person to at least talk to a little bit, which is Lilith.
And oh god, it's come back around.
It's come back around. Lilith and her new traveling companion. You had the initial encounter with Bellinor. After, arranging his bones in a manner you consider respectful and in a place that he gave no grievances about, you return to the camp to, as many others have had, checked heads, looked at lists, made sure everything is all right. Bellinor, when you return back to the group, the group at large, he tells you that he has to rest, and that in time he will come back again if you beckon for him. This experience and this symbiotic relationship, you don't quite understand it yet, or why a ghost would need to rest, but just one of the many things that you will come to understand in the future. At this juncture, what is Lilith doing, or thinking, or feeling?
Still saddened by everything that's happening. It has happened, but curious, confused. Her mind's kind of starting to, it feels like a puzzle's been put in front of her and she wants to start putting the pieces together. But she doesn't really know if she even has all the pieces.
And this is a situation that you never wanted to find yourself in, especially in this new found home that you literally washed into. And there's always the consideration that if you were more like your other siblings, that perhaps you could have prevented any loss of life, if not maybe even saving Greenwood as a whole. So is the skill of your family. But you do know there are things that only you can do. There are things that you've learned through various life experiences that nearly cost you yours. Many, many obscure and rare books that you've sought after, ruins that you've delved into and studied. And even in those moments, fleeing from Greenwood, you did find yourself calling back those harsh training sessions your mother put you through. And while the memories of them are not fond because they are a failure to you, you know that they played a significant part in keeping yourself alive and protecting the Albrecht family and successfully getting them out of the village unharmed. Your ability to move quietly, to observe your surroundings, to make choices quickly, to wield a weapon when pressured, to not always stick to something simple or even stand your ground in a way where you could have been overwhelmed. You realize a lot of those little things that were once drilled into you that couldn't be applied when you needed them did. And as you're in the camp, as you're watching other people slowly preparing themselves to get ready, the parents talking to their children, preparing them for what is surely to be a difficult and arduous journey further until the Emerald Boughs, you know you've been prepared for this. You know the skills of your family and the memories that you've been able to recall will help you survive here. And as time goes by, these skills will solidify. Your confidence might not be where you want it to be now. But for the sake of all of these people, and as is the literal living proof of the Albrecht family, you know they will come to fruition to the point that you can pay back the people of Greenwood. You can at least pay back that small debt. Lilith, please switch to your first level character sheet. And so the survivors of Greenwood pack up. Goods are distributed amongst those that are healthy and able. Those things that don't need to be brought with you are left behind. Younger kids that are too exhausted or unable to walk any further are carried by adults more able. And you press southward until the Emerald Boughs. The good thing to know is that in places such as this, especially in an environment such as this one, a court owned by a spirit, that the spirit's domain, depending upon their level of influence, is one of the safest places you could be. And that they have their own laws that are established. And while the Emerald Boughs does have creatures living in it that could be dangerous, there is, at least amongst the council, an understanding that Fazil has had some sort of contact with the Greenskeeper, the spirit of the Emerald Boughs. That you should be protected for the time being. The specifics are kept from everyone else at large, but everyone is comforted and told that Fazil's spirit will guide the passage. Not the literal spirit, but in spirit of. And you push on through the night. So, because I'm going to pick on everyone that's level 1 now, because you are pushing through the night, I want everyone to make me Constitution saves. Let's see how well you endure this push through the
I'll
night.
be good at those.
17.
You know, several of you are.
24.
Holy
Woo.
moly. 24. Yep.
You said save, right?
Yep.
Oh, that's a nat 20.
Wow.
Because it actually is important, 23.
Dang, I thought I was doing pretty good with my 17 out here.
Sorry, Audie's here to show people up tonight.
An 11 for Titan.
Sufficient.
Okay.
It meets. It
He
meets.
didn't
what you
roll
did.
well, but thankfully the save puts him up a bit.
Yeah. Being proficient in it helps.
Yeah.
So don't worry, it's still enough to beat. As predicted, pushing through the night while there are occasional complaints, everyone understands what's at stake. Stopping to rest is dangerous. It could come at the cost of everyone that has survived so far. And so you press on. And uncertain as to your circumstances, as to your enemy, if they're pursuing you or not, the hike, the trek is quieter. It isn't boisterous or upheld by loud songs to distract children. It is somber, but resolute. You've come this far. There is no way anyone is willing to give up what they've had to work so hard to keep already. Amongst those on the reigning council, how long would it have been agreed to more or less force march into the next day?
No, I guess that's on me.
Mm-hmm.
Probably till afternoon of the next day is when they'd push to.
Okay.
There are still kids and elderly people, and
yeah,
he knows he can't push them forever, or shouldn't push them forever. So probably around the afternoon of the next day.
Okay. Well, everyone pushes through. Again, there are complaints. But for those that are complaining are easily comforted, and those that have reasonable complaints, especially as you, Titan, someone who has cared for the physical well-being of a lot of these people in this town. You know there are a couple of the older folks here that are not complaining, but you know are probably suffering a good deal by having to push through this.
Yeah.
But they know their role. They understand what needs to be done. It is certainly a respect and an attitude that Fazil had always kind of instilled, that even though he is old and he was retired, that when there are expectations placed upon you by those that have less experience, it is good for you to set an example. And so they are. It goes well into the afternoon. The early part of the afternoon. If anyone would dare to make a nature or a survival check to try to gauge the time, you're more than welcome to. After the flight, it got a little complicated to keep sure track of what was happening.
He gets a 19.
A natural 20 for a 24 nature.
Nice.
She's smart.
Appropriate.
A 21 for Titan.
Wow, you guys are... Stop.
I'm
You know
sure
where
we'll
the
pay
sun
for
is.
it later.
Oh, you guys become level 1 and suddenly the average roll is above a 20. Well, for those of you that rolled above a 15, had you dared, you were able to pace time. You kind of lost track of time during the initial flight, because it was so hard to do that many things while also worrying about the well-being of yourself, everyone else, and then also just not tripping over your own feet and roots as you were going. But as the trek into the Emerald Boughs became more consistent, more just a matter of pace, and while there is no direct sunlight, there is enough natural light that bleeds in that you could sort of tell as the time progressed from when it got dark to when it got light. You're able to approximate that it's probably close to about 1:30 the following day. You guys are gonna... You think, from observations, there's been no signs of pursuit. It is probably in the best interest that you find a comfortable place to rest. There have been no signs of creatures, predators. There have been signs of other critters that have skittered along, whole herds of squirrels that you've seen scamper between trees, with they have webbing between their legs, so they make these huge leaps between trees. Seeing somebody, a group of people, then immediately fleeing in the other direction. There were deer, a handful of which eventually, after a certain point in the night, Viren did part ways from the main pack to go attempt to find something to hunt, to which he did eventually, near the tail end, probably closer into the early morning, the late morning, rather, he did eventually bring back some quarry. And you guys would find yourself in an opportunity where it is time to rest. It is owed to several peoples to stop. Would anybody like to make a survival check to find a suitable place to stop? If you dare.
Okay. Now, no, I'm not crazy. I'm not lying. Natural 20.
Woo!
You guys
That's
are gonna be
3
hard to
tonight.
kill. Yeah, okay.
No,
Matt,
I think that's just for now. We're getting them all out, and then it's going to be once.
I am wearing the wrong shirt tonight, for certain. This is at least not a shirt influence kind of night.
Hooray, we're overcoming your shirt.
Yeah, I was just wearing my Chaos shirt tonight.
Oh, well then we're probably not overcoming it.
I was going to say, that means we've still got 30 minutes to roll a ton of nat ones.
Well, I better force you to make a bunch of dice rolls then. Okay, well, you know what? Through sheer spite, mostly, but also a decent familiarity with the Boughs themselves, Roz, while you probably have only traveled this far a handful of times, given this is now pretty much a day's trip worth of walking, you recognize signs, and with various critters moving in different directions, you do manage to find a location where there is, again, one of these titanic redwoods with its root system that looks like several of the roots onto one side of the tree. Something has worn through a lot of the rock and gravel and dirt and has basically made a small overhang in which you can step through the roots and provide cover for oneself. There's a lip above it that provides great cover for those that are down below, and a location for everyone that is responsible, more or less, the militiamen, to keep an eye on things. It's actually probably as good of a spot as you'd think you could find. And so you break. And you settle in. Viren, with a little bit of help from Titan to expedite things, you butcher the deer. And collaboratively, you all manage to start a fire. And between everything that is here with enough supplies, it is easy enough to cook pretty much the entire deer, and it is enough to pass around amongst the peoples here. And while there's no fanfare, after all this running and fear, it's good. It's simple, but it's good. Interesting question. What is everyone's passive perceptions? Now that they've all probably at least changed a little.
12.
14.
10.
It's
11,
10 plus,
actually.
10 plus perception, right?
Yeah. Yep.
It's 11.
11 as well.
Okay. I knew this was one of your party's weak points, but yeah. That being said, I think Corona's still a pretty good representation. You've broken camp, or rather, you've set up camp. Food has been cooked, passed around. People are huddled together, just catching their breath. The day has, comparatively by last night, which was a bit hotter and humid, cooled off considerably. Even more so with no direct sunlight. Corona, you volunteered for first shift, knowing that you would also like a bit of an extended break, given how much you've just put in the work in the last 24 hours.
Everyone has, to be fair, but yeah.
True. And not everyone is as fortunate to have the physique you do. But while you're standing that first watch as everyone's eating, you do catch something out of the corner of your eye. A glimpse of something. You couldn't really make out what it was other than movement. And it vanished behind one of the redwoods.
I think she's going to. How far away are people from where the watch would be?
So the watchmen closest to the actual bulk of the survivors are all probably about 20 feet away. And then there's probably a handful of other scouts that are sort of spread out by about like another 30 feet from there.
Okay. I think she's going to just whistle. I think that's the simplest thing to get the attention of the scouts, and whatever hunters are available. And she's going to say, "Pretty sure I saw something over there." She'll point out where it was. Question though.
Yeah.
I guess it's a little bit different now, but it's worth asking. Did it seem to remind her of the initial, skittering before everything went crazy?
There was no noise with this.
Oh, okay.
It was like a breeze carried through the trees, and then you just saw movement out of the corner of your eye. Again, it was just enough for you to acknowledge something moved, but you really couldn't catch anything. but its position was like 30 feet up on the tree. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, it doesn't quite feel the same.
Well, she's going to, if the scouting party wants, she'll advance, with them, whatever kind of makes the most sense tactically.
Yeah.
As far as the resources we have.
Yeah. So because of how few fighting fit individuals you have, Viren, the hunter, who was just finishing like cleaning up his kit, and Oren, the retired paladin, they'll both respond to your call, and everyone else will hunker down, with the other scouts still keeping their perimeter to make sure no one sneaks up on you. The three of you collectively will just kind of look at each other and nod that advance is the right choice. So you're going to take the lead. Viren's going to swing a little bit left. Oren's going to swing a little bit right. And you're going to move forward towards, I'm assuming, the tree in which you saw the movement.
Yeah.
Okay. Now that you're going towards there, make another perception check for me.
Okay. Not great. 10.
10 isn't great, but it is enough for you to realize that what you think you saw, still not sure what it is, doesn't seem to have moved away. You continue moving around the edge of the tree, keeping a relatively safe distance. And as you rotate, you see the others kind of match your pace to make sure that there's no really overlapping lines, so no one can get in each other's way. And you reach the point where you stop, and you don't see anything where you expected it to be. Just green moss, the occasional, gnarled knob on the tree where a branch once was, and you've watched it grown higher up onto the tree. And then as you're staring, you realize you catch something again in your peripheries, except you realize you're looking at the wrong spot, and your eyes train down. And in the roots of the tree, peeking over one of them, is this small little glowing green spirit. Its head is no bigger, probably, than your bald fist. It has two little ears that are kind of moving, kind of in an amorphous green energy, but it clearly has like two set eyes, and it's just kind of peering at you over the root.
She looks down at it, and I think she's gonna let out somewhat audible, at least for the hunters that are, being quiet as we approach. They'll probably hear her mumble like, "What the hell? Is that a jewel? No."
Hey, bit.
Huh?
It slowly begins revealing more of itself, and you see a shaped head. It's kind of like an upside-down teardrop, and its little amorphous, flickering ears, and it has these two small little hands that kind of pull itself up over the root, and it sits on kind of this stumpy bottom with these two tiny little legs. It just kind of raises one of its arms, and which you can only assume is a wave.
You fellas know something about this?
Viren's the first one to chime in. I think I've seen a few of these before. Forest spirits. I mean, minor ones at that. But I've seen them flickering around out here while I've been hunting. They usually don't mean any harm. I think this is a good sign, though. I think we could try to talk to it, and you can go talk to the big spirit for us.
All right. think this is what I saw. Or at least, I hope so. She's gonna crouch down, kind of loosening the grip on her bow, and just with a hand free, she's going to kind of like lower herself, like squat down slowly. She's used to. It's not the same, but she's used to working with animals to some degree, so she knows sudden movements can scare them, and she's gonna treat this as a similar situation. So, she's gonna basically lower herself and say, "Hey, can you understand what I'm saying?"
Skibbity.
Skip. Here, let's try this. If you can, she extends her hand out, like 2 fingers out, kind of like you would with like a bird or something, so that it could like perch on your hand. Hop on if you can.
You see it push itself up on its little stubby legs, and then it jumps from the root it's perched on, and you watch as its form kind of coalesces into a ball. It bounces off the forest floor and then up and lands onto your hand.
Ooh.
It's warm. And you watch it sort of reform. It doesn't take like the full shape that you just saw it in. It is now a little more amorphous. Its legs and its bottom half of its body have kind of just sort of become one, stump. But you don't really feel any weight. It's just warmth, like sunlight on your hand. And it just sort of looks up at you with its glowing eyes. Hey, baby, do.
We might have someone you can talk to, maybe.
Beepity.
She looks to the other two, and she's just like, "This is a first for me. I'm sorry. This is way out my element."
I've never really spoken to one myself, so I'm sure maybe someone else can do better. Again, this used to be Fazil's thing. Let's see if it'll go back to the camp, and we can perhaps try to have a conversation with it then.
Right. Okay, I'm gonna take you back to camp. There's lots of people, but none of them are gonna hurt you, okay?
A beep-a-da.
Take that as an all right. And she'll walk back with everyone in tow.
Yeah, everyone, they still kind of keep their, like, the general distances from you as the center. Just not necessarily showing any kind of, like, aggression towards the spirit, just being aware.
Yeah.
Everyone's nerves are a little frayed. It's been like 30 hours since people have slept. Maybe a little longer, honestly. So you get back to the camp. There's a whistle, a bird call that's given. That's an all clear. Yeah, and for those of you that are in the shelter, revealing yourselves a little, as Corona kind of comes up on the ledge overlooking the canopy, the tree's roots rather, you see that Corona just in her hand has this kind of stumpy little glowing tree spirit.
Looks like we're not in danger. But I don't suppose there's any folk here that might know how to talk to these more nature spirit folk, would there? Hunters?
Quiet looks kind of pass between various people. No,
Roz,
no.
you go woodcutting, don't you?
Yeah, fair.
I'm half dead right now. Why do I need to be awake? What is that thing?
It's so cute.
It's a spirit, apparently. Doesn't mean us any harm.
Deeba-da.
Okay. Why would I know how to talk to it?
I don't know. You go out there and I don't know if you ever seen one of these things. I guess not. So, don't mind me. Go back to sleep.
Okay.
Do you think it speaks Palm?
Well, I think it understands us. It's just we can't understand it.
Ta-da.
Hey, listen. Do you know what the Greenskeeper is?
Habibadi.
I don't understand that. 1 beep yes, 2 beeps no. Do you know what the Greenskeeper is?
Habibadi.
Alright, that was 1 beep.
D.
Okay. We need to go see the Greenskeeper.
It'll just take one of its little amorphous arms and point towards the southeast.
Right. We've been looking for something like 12 hours. Do we have to go now?
Da-bee-da-boo.
Diane!
Has anybody tried, well, acting with it?
This isn't a big enough camp that Titan can't hear his
Yeah,
name
for
being
sure.
called. So he'll wander over. How can I help you?
Green guy knows where the Greenskeeper is.
This
Habibadi.
feller.
B.
Is it speaking any sort of recognizable language? Can I parse together? Like, is it trying to speak Sylvan or something?
I mean, you can roll an insight check.
So let's do it up. Lose our d20s. Hold on, where'd you go?
Don't roll away.
Alright, this is gonna take a minute.
They're very heavy.
No, my dice just ran away. Hold
Oh.
on.
And it's still running away.
Do that thing where you drop it and it hits your chair and then it's just gone forever.
Teleports away,
Yeah.
yeah.
I had the most terrifying experience towards the tail end of Convergence. I lost a D4. And usually when I drop a dice, I have a general idea where it lands, and sometimes if it like catapults itself in a direction, I can usually find it. Well, one night I lost a D4 during a battle, and I could not find it. And then after the session ended and I got up and actually looked for it hard, I still couldn't find it, and so I was just dreading the day I would find it because I was likely to step on it. And I didn't. But it did take me like 2 months to find it, though. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, I'm back.
Welcome
It
back.
legitimately escaped my room.
Wow.
Had to have found it in my hallway.
So close.
Although, I mean, its journey did good things. 20. Not nat.
Gotcha.
Modified.
Gotcha. So, Titan, your background tells you a couple of things. One, spirits are creatures that came from the primal wilds and took on a new form here under the restrictions of having to stay in a location that they have to care for. So
Yes.
they did come over with all the knowledge of their previous existence and the languages that came with it, which also comes with the world's first language of Common, usually. That's why
Right.
most spirits, like Looney, for instance, could converse with all of you pretty well. If not, saying they have a bit of an accent, if you will. You have learned in the time since spirits have infested Eldarth, that there are spirits that have courts, and then there are spirits that are servants to spirits that have courts. And that only tends to be the case for very powerful spirits. And that these are spirits that are born of new growth within the court. So this little guy, you think is a spirit born of a new tree. And so it does not have the history or language experience of the spirits in which they were born of. In which case, they speak in a language that is purely spirit. But they are usually capable of understanding, especially if their spirit is a very intelligent spirit. So that's why it seems to speak with intonations as people are asking it questions, even though it has no way of physically communicating with you.
No, Titan will just... I can definitely confirm that it's able to understand us. And likely is a servant of the spirit we are looking for.
Hubby! It takes an arm and points at Titan.
Little guy's just new, though. Still learning language.
Dabby.
Sounds like he's saying that's right.
It points at you, Corona.
All right. Well, we've come all this way. Might as well go find the reason that we're here. Our potential salvation.
Well, if we walked, would it take this many days to get to them? She holds up one finger.
I have to make an intelligence check for it. Give me a second. It looks at your hand and just kind of gives you a very like B da ba da skibba b.
This many? She holds up a skip finger.
Skibba b. Da ba da skibba d.
Less than one?
It looks at you again, Titan. Like, help me out here.
He smiles at the little creature. Says, I think it all very much depends. Likely this creature travels different than we do. Regardless, we have people that need rest. We'll have to stay here the night. But if you're willing to show us the way, little spirit, it would aid us greatly.
B scabba D. B. And you watch as it hops down from Corona's hand, and it scurries to one of the larger, thicker redwoods in the area, and it takes one of its little arms and points up at the tree. And it continues going, B, very excitedly.
Are they right there?
B.
Guess it wouldn't hurt to check it out. Chrono will make her way over there.
Lilith will follow. Just very curious.
Titan will go too, but he's gonna start casting as a ritual. What's it called? Detect magic.
Fair. Yeah, it's gonna take you 2 minutes.
Yeah, he's gonna have to wait about 10 minutes, but
yep.
By this time, I think there's been enough excitement Audie's wandered over.
Mm-hmm.
Fine. Wait, I'm coming.
As the spirit gets to the tree and several of you gather around, again, it continues to point at the tree very excitedly, exclaiming over and over again. And after enough of you have gotten close, you see it turn and it faces towards the tree. On its stumpy little legs, it walks into the tree. And then you hear the sound of splitting bark as you watch a line of glowing green energy rip up through where it entered until about 15 feet in the air, and then you watch as the moss pulls aside and a large portal has opened in the tree. And somewhere very distant you hear, bee, bee.
All right, why not? I'm just gonna go in. I'm too tired to question it.
And Audie is never one to let Roz make dumb decisions alone. She's right in there with her.
Oh, bears. We'll chase after the two of them.
For crying out loud. Doc, what do you think?
I think we better get people moving through this here portal.
All right. She'll move
Hopefully
back
those
towards...
other 3 idiots clear out any sort of traps that might be on the other side.
Yeah, let's hope so. Corona will go back to the rest of the group.
Corona and Titan, you guys will fall back to the group at large. And again, through spreading word through the council that Titan has arranged, everyone else will rally the remainder of the group amidst protests, and gather them all and convince them to go through the portal.
I'd like to point out that right there, that is the entire party dynamic.
Yep.
Correct. Very much so.
The adults going to do the responsible thing, and these three just going, sure, we'll jump in. I'm glad we established it early.
Yep.
Meanwhile, while the survivors are being gathered, Roz, Lilith, Adi, you all step through the portal, and it is a rush, like standing in a gust of wind in an open plain. It is cool and then warm, and you feel like you've been brought from one place and thrown a step forward in immense velocity. You stumble out onto the other side. Where you land, you are in an enormous clearing, ringed by the same trees that you've been walking through for the last day. Except overhead, there's sunlight, beautiful blue sky. In front of you, the dark, looming, craggy stone of the Titan Horns mountain range. And kind of growing up on the side of it, you see there's this immense gathering of moss and tree and beautiful flowers of red and yellow and blue and purple and almost every type of plant you can imagine growing in this one singular mass. And as you arrive there, you see dozens, hundreds of the same little tree spirits that guided you here, floating around, hugging the sides of trees, looking at these people that have entered into this area, uncertain. And then slowly around the sides of the trees, you see humanoid figures arrive. They're dressed in these very fine emerald green robes. They have hoods brought up over their head. They have helmets underneath, and you can see that they are armed. They watch quietly from a distance. And suddenly the mound in front of you begins to move. Like an earthquake, your feet rattle as it shifts. You see trailing bits of dirt and rock and dust move as the side of the mountain quite literally begins to shift and take form into this massive, towering, 150 feet, 200 foot tall creature. And there's a moment as you're sort of watching appendages take shape, a neck grow long and twisting, and a tail equally similar. The only way to describe what is before you is a dragon seeming to be made of earth and tree and moss. And it has these bright, glowing emerald green eyes. And its head is larger than the average home in Greenwood, and it bears down onto all three of you. And who has entered into my court? Speak your names.
Oh!
What?
I'm awake now. Hi, I'm Roswin.
Lilith Alana?
By the damp earth and craggy moor, you're a dragon. Melody, Audie, Obrecht.
And then that is where we're going to finish for tonight.
Good spot.
Cliffhangers.
Bum, bum, bum. I at least got you there. This was exactly where I had planned for the tonight's session to end, and I wasn't sure if I was going to get there or not.
Did it?
Exactly at
Did
midnight.
it.
Woo!
We're
Good
doing
work, guys.
pacing. Woohoo!
Yay!
And rating.
Yay!
We got to meet a
We are
little
doing that.
Princess Mononoke style forest spirit.
Yep. Skippity.
Skippity-beep.
Skibbity-bee-bop-bop-bop-bop-bop.
One of them will come out with a trumpet later, don't worry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Audie found her band.
Tree spirits. Yeah, so that's where we're gonna stop. And you all have an opportunity to do a proper meet and greet with the Greenskeeper next week. Yeah, I'm glad that pacing kept where I expected it to, despite my relative exhaustion from my somewhat poor sleep last night. But we got there. As always, I hope everyone enjoyed themselves. I did.
Oh yeah.
I even cried a little.
Definitely.
Oh, yeah.
Same.
So, as always, I have to thank you guys for playing, because without players, I could not do this. And I take immense pleasure from you all having fun. Likewise, for those of you that have been hanging around and watching, thank you. It's always appreciated, lurkers and all. We are, tonight, finally, I'm going to remember, we're going to raid another channel of a friend of ours from the Pacific Northwest, a lovely, beautiful human being by the name of Kelly, over at the channel Dork Tales. He's been running TTRPGs for, honestly, I don't know how long, to be honest, but a lot, and very long. He's insanely talented and very charming, and very handsome. You can go tell him that. Yeah, we're gonna send you on over there. But before we do that, hopefully, with meeting a giant earth dragon, the party will, as we all should when we can, make good choices. We'll see you all next week, if not before then. I'm still working on it, I swear. All right, good night, everybody. Thanks for hanging out.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Rating? I didn't know there was a delay, so now we're done. Night,
Okay.
everybody.